which means we are 2 seconds away from being ready. And there we are. We are live. Welcome, everybody. Sunday, April 28th. A nice little Sunday slate. I'm excited about it. We don't have too much weather to worry about. At least the weather only matters in the game that has the chalkiest pitcher, so that should be fun. E-Mac, how's your weekend?
Oh, my DFS weekend, not that great. The regular weekend's been just fine. I'm on my first of the, I think we're now 15 days into the NHL playoffs, my first 3-day losing streak.
Ouch.
Never had it. Yeah. No, I've said this on multiple shows. I mean, I'm only playing between 20 and $50 a day. Dialed it back a little bit now that it's mostly just showdown slates, but I've been killing it. Thank you, Jay Kari, for the projections and the Alex rankings. But on my nominal amounts there, I'm up just even with my 3-day losing streak, I'm up just over $500 in NHL playoffs. So
That'll work.
You go. This
That'll
is
work.
literal pocket change I'm throwing out there.
That'll work.
But it's been nice.
I've had a fantastic weekend on all fronts, although I'll be honest, I'm a little tired. I stayed up too late last night sweating baseball, which I don't normally do. And
where's the wife? I got to ask that first. Where's the wife?
Wife is in Rhode Island.
There we are.
But I was also watching the UFC event last night, so both things were kind of happened simultaneously. So if it was just sweating baseball, I would have went to bed at 10 o'clock because I was really tired. But between having MMA on and sweating baseball, I had two things. I need two things to keep me up, but I was not really excited about waking up this morning, that's for sure. So let's get the plugs out of the way. MLB Strategy is the promo code, 50% off your first month with us. Any package you choose, including packages with Fantasy Cruncher. I highly, highly recommend that you come check us out. It's a great time to do it. MLB content across the board from Alex. NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, PGA, NASCAR, MMA. What am I missing? Tennis.
NASCAR?
NASCAR. Yeah, NASCAR ownership I know is up right now. So if you want to play for whatever today's race is, now's the time to get in there. And you could use the promo code MLB Strategy. Get an all access, 50% off your first month. If it's all access, you can get access to everything. That's what all access means. Can't beat it. And then we are brought to you, as always, on the Strategy Show by Yahoo Sports. I'm going to drop this link into the chat right now. I hope. Yes, I am. I have it ready and everything. Highly recommend playing on Yahoo. It should be the first place that you're entering contests every single day. Lower management fees, sometimes no management fees, 10 max contests. You don't have to worry about going up against 150 other lineups from individual people. I really like what they're doing. I've been playing on there every day since I was able to get everything set up. Since basketball tamed, I've been able to play. I've been able to play everywhere, and I'm happy. But if you're new to Yahoo, please use the link that I just pasted in chat to sign up. Very, very helpful for us. Does more than you would ever know. Doesn't affect your experience whatsoever. And you could use the promo code AWESOMO and get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. So happy that just rolls off the tongue for me now.
YSRPs, baby. YSRPs.
It was not yesterday's star Rick Porcello. That's what I thought it was going to be on Friday morning, but no luck for me. No luck. So we've got, what do we got? 10 games on the early slate? Is that right?
Is it 10 or 11?
I think it's 10. Per my count, it's 10, but I could be wrong. I'm wrong a lot.
It is 10. You are correct.
There we go. We got 10. Weather is iffy in New York for Brewers Mets, and weather might come into play late in Tampa, Boston, but we will get to all of that. You ready to start this off?
Sure. Let's fire it up.
First game up on the docket, Phillies and Marlins. 4.5 run implied total for the Phils, 3.4 for the Marlins. A 62% chance to win for Philadelphia. Zach Eflin going for the Phillies. Pablo Lopez going for Miami. I don't really have any hot takes here, although I thought I would. Eflin on the two pitcher sites, around 15% ownership. Pablo Lopez on the two pitcher sites, 5 to 8%. I actually have Lopez grading out dollar for dollar, just slightly better than Eflin, but I got similar amounts to the public here, so I don't really have anybody that I'm leaning too hard. Do you have a preference for Eflin or Pablo Lopez?
In this game, I actually don't. I'm tepid on both sides. I have not run my crunches, but I would suspect at most I will get 5 to 10% of these guys. I'm going to plant the flag elsewhere. If we turn it around and look at hitters, Harper, Hoskins, Nick Williams is back in our lives. The relaxed Maikel Franco, just luxuriating and lounging there in the 8-hole, is doing quite nicely now that he's not in the 3, 4, 5 spots, since they've built a team around him. If you want to go that route, yeah. But those home runs from the bottom of the lineup still count, so I'm okay with those guys. With regard to Lopez, he's actually pretty. We're going to say this is 350 batters, about evenly split since the beginning of last season. If I've got my filters right, and I do. He is an adequate pitcher. It's a pretty small sample size to figure out what he's really got going on with him, but he doesn't walk a lot, which is something that he doesn't have to fix. So that's always good to see from a pitcher. So usually if somebody has a low walk rate, they generally can make other improvements in their game and become better by better going up, as opposed to, he's got to stop throwing so many balls and wasting so many pitches, which is not really it's fixing the problem, but it's not giving you much of a ceiling. So that's nice to see from him. Pretty decent ground ball rate, but it's tough to tangle with this current iteration of the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm sure much to your chagrin. Do you want to pee on the Phillies at all today? Spit on them? Throw some tomatoes?
I don't have much of them on DraftKings right now. They're one of my least exposed teams, and I don't really have much of anything going on the Marlins side. I'm only like 4 or 5% of anyone. On FanDuel, though, no real ownership going to the Phillies side, so I did get to a little bit of Nick Williams, Bryce Harper, McCutchen, and then either Real Muto or Hoskins. So I like some sort of combination of the first 5 guys, especially getting Nick Williams in there at the flat minimum. If he ends up being in that lineup, I like the idea of using him, a little bit of upside for power, especially in this park. But there's not a ton that I like in this game. I'm just sort of like tolerant of everything.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
But Pablo Lopez grades out really well for me. I was kind of surprised. I expected it to be bad, but he's a good pitcher. Projects for 8 Ks and steamer, 3.88 FIP. By all accounts, he's better than Eflin. And it just so happens that he plays for the Marlins and Eflin plays for the Phillies. If we flip-flop these two, I think Pablo Lopez would be pretty popular.
Yes, or put this game in Marlins Park.
Yeah, Pablo Lopez would be pretty popular. That's a lot of alliteration.
Have you? I just wanted to ask, have you met Sally selling seashells by the seashore?
Come again?
Have you met Sally selling seashells by the seashore?
I don't believe so.
She might know Pablo.
Gotcha.
He's a pretty good pitcher, projected-wise.
Anything else in this game?
No, get me out of here before I dig myself in a hole.
All right,
Too late.
This is the big one right here. This will define most people's slate. Red Sox and Rays. 4.1 run implied total for the Red Sox, 3.4 for the Rays. 58% chance to win for Boston. Chris Sale on the hill for the Red Sox. Tyler Glasnow going for the Rays. I didn't get to any Glasnow. First and foremost, that surprised me. But he's really expensive. Second most expensive guy on FanDuel. He is third most expensive guy on DraftKings and tied for second with Sale, just $1 behind Matt Boyd on Yahoo. So in that regard, I get it. It's not like the Red Sox are a crazy good strikeout matchup. They're just really good at hitting. So I don't have much Glasnow, but let's just put it out there like this. How do you feel about Chris Sale today? How much are you a believer in 2019 Chris Sale?
Yeah, this is one of those tough ones. The Tampa Bay is much improved. Of course, a lot of their better hitters swing the stick from the left side of the plate. I'm just wanted to see what the velocity is here on Sale's pitches, because I thought it had been going up. So looking here at Brooks Baseball, not the stark contrast I was expecting. So that seems to be a little bit better. It's not where it had it. So putting this in perspective, and early in the season, I like to look at and compare previous Aprils. just to see what's going on, because oftentimes pitchers will start to increase, or what they're doing at the end of the season may not be the same if they're worn down. But usually when they're doing well, it's kind of that July, August time frame when everything becomes routine. But if we look at Sale and we look at 2014, his April four-seam fastball was 94 miles an hour. In 15, it was not just shy of 96. That's very nice. In 16, it was 94. In 17, it was 95. In 18, it was 94. This year, it's about 92 and a half. So not down as much as I was expecting to see. And I know that I don't have this game by game here, but I know that's because it's trending up just a little bit. So I'm okay with what I get with him. I don't want to make a stand one way or the other, but I suspect I would at least want to match the field, if not go a little higher in this one, just because of the menu, shall we say, of what we have for our pitchers today. And going into last night, that's not what I thought my answer would be. But and this is the thing you have to remember: you can't let the prior day slate, the prior week slate affect what you're doing. So last night I hammered this home on the show ad nauseum. In the evening slate with just 6 games, I said I'm going peanut butter approach on the pitchers. Now I really like Mike Minor. Wish I had gone more of him. But
hold on, I don't know what that means.
He did very well.
No. I don't know what the peanut butter approach means.
Oh, I was capping everybody pretty much at 25%. And hoping that variance would be on my side versus the field. So I had to increase that just a little bit.
I need you to explain to me what this has to do with peanut butter. What am I missing here?
You evenly spread.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. We're there. That's not the direction I was going, but that makes sense.
Oh.
I couldn't figure it out.
Okay. Oh, well, now I'm trying to think of, good God, do I need to go to... what is that? Urban Dictionary and find out what peanut buttering really means today.
I had nothing there. I didn't go like a negative direction, a positive direction. I had no direction to go. I was lost. I needed the map. Yes,
generally it just means an even spread. So I work, I work in compensation, so we do merit process. And for those of you at home, that's when your bosses decide what your annual increase would be. And what we don't like to see is that them being the managers to give everybody the same number. That's not what you spend your whole year working towards, nor is it what you spend your future plans going into your career. So that's just the peanut butter approach. Gotcha. It's the even spread. But anyway, back to this one. No, it's a good question here. I did one crunch last night, and I hated it, and I thought Sale would be the guy I would really, really be getting to, and I'm not. I've got him about 30% here, so I'll have to upload our ownership projections and recrunch it. But for me, I prefer Flaherty a little more. Frighteningly, Steven Matz. That's when I may just put the thumb on the scale and push down a little bit. But we've still got Domingo Germán and some other guys here. So if this was Chris Sale of 2 years ago, I'd be fired up. If this was Chris Sale of meaning he looked good in all his starts, this would be a nice spot for him. I tend to be a little more risk averse than most, even though in baseball, who knows what's going to happen because it's a very event-based variant sport, but it just doesn't feel right on Sale. Now, that said, he's reasonably priced for his performance thus far in the season.
That is an understatement. I just realized that we have 5 new lineups at this point. So everything that I did in the morning and my crunches are now, I threw those in the garbage now. I updated those lineups because as soon as we started talking about Boston, somebody was like, "Oh, no JD again." I was like, "Oh, I guess I should just update that just to check it out." And oh my God, we got 2 more since I've said this. So,
remember, you wanted to go early.
No, I'm glad. The quicker we do this, the quicker we don't have to do it any longer, and I could just pay attention to actually making my lineups. Mets lineup is in now too, so let me dump that in here. I don't know what to do with Sale, and I've had this conversation now for, was this his 6th start, probably 5th start, 6th start, something like that. And I've had to say it every single time. It's the thing I feel least comfortable with in probably all of baseball right now, because when Chris Sale is right, he's like as right as any pitcher in the league. He's a top end full on 100% ace. And when those types of guys are priced the way that he is priced now, you don't think twice. You just jam him into your lineups in an aggressive way. And that is, on the surface, what I intend to do. But it's really, really, really tricky. If I don't touch anything, if I just use my projections baseline, I have Chris Sale hitting his target score on FanDuel roughly 40% of the time. The next closest guy is Matt Boyd at 10%. There's just no comparison for me. I can't even put anybody else in sniffing distance. So the question then becomes, how much can I discount Chris Sale's expected performance today before I think that the results are not what they should be? Like if I cut down his projection by, let's say, 10%, which I think is a pretty aggressive way to do this off of 5 or 6 starts just in 2019. If I do that, I think that he is still going to be far and away my best pitcher. And if that's the case, then I don't know what else I can really do. We haven't projected for 40% ownership on FanDuel, 47% on DraftKings, and 53% on Yahoo. If I load up my stuff in a normal way, I'm going to end up having more than that of Chris Sale. He has an unparalleled ceiling, and we're either going to figure it out really quickly. We're going to figure it out really quickly one way or the other. I don't expect him to have like a pedestrian 2019 from start to finish. He's either going to become the Chris Sale that we think he is, or it's going to be a problem, and I assume he sees a DL stint. Something will be pointed to something being wrong. I don't get the sense that he's just going to go out there and like hope for the best more often than not. Last start, he K'd 10. Is that what we're looking for? He K'd 10 in 5 innings. The start before that, he K'd 6 in 5 innings. So 16 Ks in the last 10 innings. Those are the 2 starts where his velocity has rebounded to something resembling his normal velocity. I'm going to go there. And if I die on the Chris Sale hill, I'm willing to die there. I'd much rather die on the Chris Sale hill than die on a lesser pitcher's hill.
So not to spoil the party, but Ronaldo Lopez, you're not feeling the love today.
I'm not feeling the 36% owned on DraftKings love, but he does grade out as like a very viable pay down option for me.
Oh yeah, I'm running it just with recalibrating from what I had done last night. I'm running it and I'm getting uncapped with 4-4 stacks, 60% Lopez and 40% Kyle Gibson. Now I like those guys for a price per dollar, but that's probably double where we need to be. And I actually got 0 sale. And this is what I like to do. And I don't know if you do a similar approach, but usually the first couple crunches when we're hours away from lock or first pitch, I just like to run it. Like basketball's the easiest way to do it. You just do it in the morning, you see what happens, and then things change throughout the day. Baseball, usually when you're getting ready to do it, you're within 2 hours of lock. So you just sit there and you're like, wow, that's not what I expected. And then as you start to tamp things down a little bit, make some adjustments, you end up coming in closer to whatever the public is doing more often than not. And for me in baseball, I like to pick pitchers as the fulcrum and determine, am I going higher or lower for a couple of the guys. And usually I can find hey, I really want to go heavy on these couple of SP2s, or yesterday morning or yesterday's early slate, I was making the stand with Strasburg and with Price, and I really had 5 pitchers. Yesterday evening, I had said I had no idea what I wanted to do. Nobody was standing out, but nobody was completely horrible. So I was just saying, you know what, we're going to let it ride evenly, and I'm going to try to make up the difference with my hitters. And that was an unmitigated disaster, but so was the day before when I was really confident in what I was doing. So your results and your process, 2 different things that happen here. But today is kind of one of those unique ones where I'm not entirely sure yet where I want to go. And part of it's Sunday lineups too. We should be getting some 4th or 5th outfielders in there today. Utility infielders are probably going to get their shot in the starting lineup. We're going to see backup catchers, in a lot of places with the night games last night and then day games today. So it can tweak a little bit. And the sites have really done a much better job of not just shitting the bed on pricing in certain cases. And this will be a different thing that we talk about in August and September, but you've got all the call ups. And is this, you like to follow the rules, is this the year where they said they're not going to the September expanded rosters to 40 and they're just going to go to 26, or is that next year? Either way,
if I had to guess, it was next year, but I also don't know whatsoever.
Right. So that's going to change a whole lot, because which is, and I think it is next year, but just since it's baseball, I love to talk about baseball. So you used to be able to expand your roster. Anybody that was on the 40 man, you could bring up in September, and a lot of guys in the minor leagues would have it in their contract, especially if you were picked in the first 5 rounds or whatever, that would say, hey, you have to at least be on the active roster. Well, the problem is, no, they would never put anybody on the DL, because what did it matter? They didn't need the roster spot. So it would become a mess down the stretch, both for DFS and for season long. But what would happen is you'd get a lot of these random guys as their minor league, whatever leagues they were in, the Sally League or the PCL, or finishing up the Arizona Fall League, all that stuff. They'd pop up as their playoffs were done, and all of a sudden you'd get this nice prospect that you weren't expecting to be in there. And the sites traditionally had priced them low because they had literally no service time or no real track record, and it was just a mess, because you would get all these cheap guys, and then they'd be batting leadoff or batting 5th or whatever, and you're like, well, this just mucks everything up. With the tighter pricing and algorithms being better, at least for the most part, at this point in the season, which is a bit of a surprise compared to track records of what the sites have done, you're not finding that, which I like, but you're not finding that obvious play that everybody's flocking to, here and there, which makes it just, this is a long way of saying you've got to figure out your different advantages and edges. And nowadays, with the proliferation of shows and free content and Twitter and all that, there are nobody, the field is going to be strong, or the herd is going to be strong on whatever is the perceived best plays now. And that wasn't always the case. So you have to decide, is the herd excited about something that has a decent chance of failing? And that is baseball. It's a sport that is a failure sport.
Yes, it is.
So anyway, just baseline stuff there, since this is kind of our strategy show / live before lock.
Rays lineup in the aggregate, from my projections, strike out 24% of the time. That's another piece that is keeping my eye on Sale. 8.8 strikeouts is what I have him projected for, which is 2 full strikeouts ahead of everybody else. I'm going to have some Sale. I'm willing to die there. Mm-hmm. And at the rate Sale's going, my life is up in the air.
Yeah, I think I'm going to end up at about 30%, and then we'll just have to see what happens with the rest of the field. Are they coming back towards me, or are they going to stay up there at their nearly half of all lineups?
I would expect him to be in half of the lineups if I had to guess, or close to it. As for bats in this game, I have very little interest in the Rays. They grade out as my 15th best stack out of 20 on FanDuel. Similar status on DraftKings. The only thing that, sometimes I would get to more of a particular stack to try to leverage the field. This is not that spot, just because I think Chris Sale is good, so I don't anticipate ending up with much Rays. Same story on the Boston side. Red Sox were my second worst dollar for dollar stack on FanDuel, 4th from the bottom on DraftKings. These guys are near the bottom again on Yahoo. I don't really want to target against any of the pitching here, and the Red Sox are relatively expensive for who they're facing, so this game's not really on my radar.
Yeah, that's an absolutely fair one there, and I echo your sentiments regarding Glasnow and the Red Sox hitters.
Benintendi, Betts, and Bogarts are getting a little bit of love on DK, but yeah, this one's just not for me. I'll stick to Sale and cross my fingers. Moving on. Blue Jays and A's, 4.5 run implied total for the Jays, 4.6 for the A's. It's a 51% chance to win, for the A's. Trent Thornton going for Toronto. Chris Bassett going for Oakland. I am not expecting to get to any Bassett. Thornton continues to be a guy who is like halfway viable, but just doesn't go deep enough into games. 6,100 on FanDuel. I don't really see the need to pay all the way down there. 7K on DK. Not getting any ownership, which I think is interesting. I'll have a couple shares, especially since Thornton is getting just an absolute sea of right-handed hitters. Do you have any interest in Thornton or Bassett?
I think that we often overlook Bassett just because, of his name. The Bassett Hound, etc. But this is not the easiest of matchups here going against Toronto, even though they've been somewhat disappointing to start out the season. They're still relatively viable with Eric Sogard, and shout out to whoever, and I wish I knew so I could give appropriate credit, but one of our members in chat in the YouTube throngs called him the baseball nerd, which I think is just outstanding. And that was not mine, but it is so appropriate for the way he looks. He doesn't have the best numbers, but he fouls off every freaking pitch, and he burns through your guy's pitch count. And if he's up there twice in the lineup, it's not a shock if in those 2 times he's combined for 20 pitches thrown to him, which is what 20 to 30% of whatever your starter's probably going to go, and it's early in the game, so it's not like your starter's just, let's just waste a couple pitches here. He's trying to get him out, and becomes a personal challenge, and it's just a mess. So I generally, when he's leading off, that causes problems. And then you've got Smoke and Grichuk, and especially in lefty-righty matchups, Rowdy Tellez, they're going to knock a mistake out of the park. Now, the rest of the lineup, not great, but now they got Guerrero Jr. in there, which is a big improvement over what
anybody.
They had.
That's a big improvement over anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, really, Luke Molly, not really. Brito, he's a mess. Drury, he's more of a glove guy and can play a bunch of infield positions, and that's why he's going to be in the league for another 3 or 4 years. But it's not as bad. So you like to pick on Toronto in the right spots. This just doesn't happen to be one of them for me.
I just got a couple more lineups, so I'm refreshing here. I'll get to a couple shares of Thornton, and that's it. No Bassett, but I think we do need to talk about the Jays. A couple individual bats, Smoke, Grichuk, Tellez in that chunk in the middle, at least on FanDuel, where you can play Tellez and Smoke in the same lineup. I like that core. Grichuk getting 27% ownership, continues to be just a chalk guy, or a guy that is destined for cash games on these sites. He just happens to be underpriced. Blue Jays are like a mid-tier stack for me. Nothing all that interesting. Similar story for the A's, just kind of mid-tier. A little bit higher on DraftKings. They're getting a little bit of love on DK. I don't share the same sentiment. I mean, Chris Davis looks fantastic across all 3 sites. He's wildly underpriced. And he's getting the ownership. 34% on Yahoo, 28% on FanDuel, 33% on DK. That all makes perfect sense to me, but I'm not trying to stack up this game. Like, I think Trent Thornton's a good pitcher. This is another game where I don't think that I'm following the field on this A's stack. I'd rather just ignore it. I think there's better options out there.
Yeah, I would agree, and the A's are one of the teams that oftentimes gets the nod in my spotlight hitters and stacks column, because I try to do a main and a late slate, and if there's early slates, I'll do 1 stack per slate just to point some teams out and some hitters that might be in good spots. But the A's being on the West Coast and generally starting in the late slate, I talk about them a ton, because even when they're on the road, it's Seattle, it's Anaheim, etc. So they're still running in that late spot, and I sort of have an affinity for them, particularly Chris with a K Davis here. Just not fired up to go against Thornton. Thornton, I think, is a poor man's or homeless man's Tyler Glass now, and that he's a reasonably good pitcher in real life. Strikeouts aren't there. So, consistently, and that's the currency of the realm here in DFS. So we don't talk about him as being a great guy unless he bubbles up kind of like today in a spot where he's an SP2 and has a chance to get go against a team here that has a few guys that strike out. But I'm not getting there to the A's, and I'm just a little bit surprised because we like the environment. So it's an upgrade from. Oh, by the way, it's not O.co anymore. Did you know that?
No.
Apparently, that branding or advertisement agreement ran out in 2016 or 17.
So what is
it's like? I think it's like Oakland, Alameda County Coliseum or something like that.
Yeah,
I was
it's
like,
O.co.
wait a second. Yeah, but I went and looked it up on Wiki, and it was like, wow, how did I not know it was just unnamed as opposed to O.co for multiple seasons now? Anyway, neither here nor there.
Too hard to keep track of. Are the Astros playing at Enron Field today?
Oh, I see what you did there.
Man, there's probably 2/3 of a chat that have no idea what any part of that is. Yeah, it's just I think the public likes this game a little bit more than I do. I don't know. I respect the pitching a little bit more than I think most. Mets and Brewers. 4.2 run implied total for the Mets. 3.9 for the Brewers. The 52% chance to win for the Mets. Steven Matz going for the Mets. Gio Gonzalez going for the Brewers. No love going to Gio. Steven Matz getting roughly 20% ownership on the two pitcher sites, around 10 on the single pitcher sites. And I have zero interest in Matz. He will not be in a single lineup of mine on either FanDuel or DraftKings. Tell me why I'm crazy, or tell me why I'm smart.
Oh, well, you're smart because you're doing what you love on a daily basis here in the DFS world, and you've carved out a nice little niche here. But, oh, wait, maybe I'm the one that's crazy. We're talking life, or are we talking this matchup? We're talking this matchup. So the interesting thing about Steven Matz, so I'm always terrified of this iteration of the Brewers because they've gone from what was traditionally a very righty-heavy team to a bunch of really, really good lefties in acquiring Yelich and getting Moustakas and bringing in Thames from overseas and giving him another chance. And Travis Shaw, the Red Sox wanted a third baseman. They gave up on him, and he's turned into a serviceable guy as well. That makes it tough when they're going against righties. When they're going against lefties, they still have the ability to dust off Ryan Braun and Jesus Aguilar, who has been just not great this season. It's been from what his track record is. So if you're just looking at Jesus here, you've got let's see, he's got really no extra base hits. What does he have? 2 in his last 10 games, and those are doubles. He's got no home runs. Does he really have no home runs on the season? Just looking at his game logs, looks to be the case. That's not who he is. He's generally serviceable and solid, and going against a guy like Matz should be something in his wheelhouse here, literally. So Matz is the guy you like to pick your spots. This just isn't one of them. If it was pretty much 20 other teams, they'd probably be talking about Matz as an SP2 with some confidence and saying this is a spot I want to go to. It's it is a home ballpark. City Field's a pitcher's park. He gets to go against the pitcher as opposed to the DH. As a lot of the other SP2s are going to have to deal with that. But this lineup I really don't want to tangle with. And they're able to, and the reason I bring this up, all the lefties, they're able to swap out 2 really great hitters and bring in righties. Or vice versa, depending on your point of perspective, against whatever handedness of pitching they're going against. And then you've got Yelich, who's just absolutely amazing against everybody. Moustakas is fine, and I wish Moustakas is one of those guys you're like, I wish he was on my team. He's not a star or anything, but you're like, I wish he was on my team because he's better than most third basemen out there, offensively at least. So. But point being, he's not an easy out against lefties, and they'll go to a righty here in the bullpen, so he's going to be just fine. So Matz makes me nervous in this particular matchup.
I don't get it. I don't understand why. I really actively dislike him here. I love the Brewers. I'm going to get an absolute ton without even factoring in leverage. This is just straight. The Brewers are my number 4 stack dollar for dollar on FanDuel, on DraftKings. and they are 5th on Yahoo. So right away, I know that they are at least going to be relevant to me. Then when I start factoring in leveraging against a pitcher who I myself am not going to be on, I expect the Brewers to be one of, if not my top stack, potentially number 2, depending on how value works out. But I'm going to end up loading up on Milwaukee, and that's the exact type of thing I want to load up on. So many guys with massive power in this lineup. Not a ton of strikeouts. They project for a 20% aggregate K rate. That is below average. Every piece of this game is pointing me towards Milwaukee. The thing that we have to worry about is that this game's got yucky weather.
Yep.
And I don't really know how to manage it. It looks like it's just going to be potentially raining off and on, could pop up storms, stuff like that, which is perfect for me because I don't care about Steven Matz at all. It seems like a game that should play. It might just be patchy. And if that's the case, it doesn't change anything for me for hitters. So I'm in for this. The weather will not affect my decision. I have no problem stacking up the Brewers. I hope that the weather looks good enough by the time we get to lock that people continue to play Mats.
I think that's a fair way to look at this for sure, Josh.
How do you feel about Mets bats here against Gio? Or how do you feel again about Gio? Not exactly the same guy he used to be.
No, he was so good and under the radar in his Oakland days, and then he put together several solid seasons with the Nationals, kind of living in the shadow of Strasburg, and then Strasburg and Scherzer, and he was absolutely fine. And he's a lefty, but there's kind of a reason he was not really signed up until now. He's on the downward point of his career. Now we can't. I'd like Dallas Keuchel on my team. Would you like Dallas Keuchel on your team?
Sure.
He's available, but Gio is an innings eater at best. He is a number 4, if not number 5 pitcher, and we like righties against him. And that is something I am looking at here. So let me get back here to the lineup and let's see who we want to have standing out. Well, the rookie Alonso, definitely solid here. Yep. Wilson Ramos got the day off. Hey, revenge. He used to catch. He used to call the game there for Gio when they were both with the Nationals. Does that give him a boost? Sean V, I need a ruling on this one.
Did you say Wilson Ramos not in the lineup?
No, he is in the.
I was going to say, I think I see him in the lineup. But
yeah. No, he is in. But I want Sean V to weigh in if this is a good matchup or not. If you're a backstop going against a pitcher that you called, 80 games for or 100 games for. And then Robbie Cano, absolutely great at contact against lefties. So Gio's calling card back in the day used to be he didn't give up a ton of home runs and he was above average on strikeouts. That's not the case anymore. So not as many righties as I want to chase after here because, hey, it's the Mets and their best guys are generally from the left side of the plate. But I think in Alonso and Ramos and, is that the Todd father? Todd Frazier? He's back in our lives. Of course, that one time when he won the home run derby in Cincinnati, that ruined his swing forever, and he just hasn't been able to hit home runs since then.
Yep, that's what it is, the home run derby.
Sean V, I need another ruling on that one. Yeah, so sorry to keep you from lineup construction, but check that one out for me. But we've got some decent spots here. So if I could get a Ramos Frazier pairing, love it. And he is still 2 spots away, so he's not adjacent to those guys. But Alonso, absolutely worthwhile. To get it. So I like that trio. And then, Michael Conforto turning into an absolutely fine hitter, fine all-around hitter and fielder and great player. And he's not ever going to be he's going to be a fringe guy for the All-Star game, but for DFS, he's someone that's a little bit unsung. So I like him. So in reviewing this, Josh, yes, I would like to play the Mets today. And just the fact that you mentioned the weather, and I liked your description of it being patchy. Let's go for the hitters here because we may not see more than 3 or 4 innings from our pitchers either because they get chased by the weather or the opposing hitters. So we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, Todd Frazier, $9 on Yahoo. Hitting in the 4-hole against the lefty. That's the type of spot you should be looking for, especially with very little ownership. I don't anticipate stacking up the Mets all that much. I figured I would. I think they're just a little pricey, so I'm having trouble grabbing them as the best value. I'm also a little surprised that their implied total. I don't know really what that's supposed to say. A 4.2 runs for the Mets. I think the Mets are slightly above average. So what's Vegas trying to tell me about Gio Gonzalez here? That's what I'm curious about. This game is not what I expected from a Vegas total, but for right now, I don't anticipate having much of this game outside of Brewers bats. No Mats, no Gio. One off Peter Alonso, one off Todd Frazier. On sites where you need a catcher, I think Wilson Ramos is fine.
Agreed, but I've got them written down here to make sure that I have the I want to make sure I have at least 10% Mets stacked here.
There we go. This one's kind of silly to me. This is the Mats pivot that everybody should be doing. Braves 5-run implied total, Rockies 4. 61% chance to win for the Braves. It's Kevin Gausman going for Atlanta. Tyler Anderson going for Colorado. Gausman 13% ownership on Yahoo and DK, 2% on FanDuel. This is silly. So I have him miles ahead of Steven Matz at less ownership. I have him ahead of Eflin. Everybody in this range except for Kyle Gibson, who we'll get to, I would just prefer to get to Gausman. So that's the spot that I want to be in. That's the direction that I will be looking today. And where he's 9,400 on FanDuel, look, I don't love it. It's a little bit too expensive for me, but I still think he is a viable play. Where he's $42 on Yahoo. Again, I think he's a viable play. I think he's going underrepresented here. So Kevin Gausman is my guy today. How do you feel about him?
I think so. And, it was pointed out in chat that he's from Denver. So, I mean, he's so going to pitch better today against the Rockies. It's just
Narrative Street, baby.
Amazing what you can uncover. Now, I don't care where he's from, but I do like the fact that on the road this season, the Rockies have about a 69.70 WRC plus, which is weighted runs created plus, which is an advanced metric that neutralizes ballpark factors and sets a league-wide baseline of 100 as the benchmark. So that means the Coors Field effect is neutralized, and the Rockies are the fourth worst offense against righties. So that bodes well for Gausman. What also bodes well for Gausman is he's not in the AL East anymore and not going against a designated hitter and stacked lineup. So I like him a lot from a larger perspective, context-wise. His price, this particular matchup, etc., he's going to be one of the guys that I am looking towards today and making sure he is one of my top 5 pitchers in my portfolio on the 2 SP sites for our 10-game slate. And that's another one I have written down because I've had to start writing some of this stuff down because as you start chasing around your crunches and you got to run some 5-3s and then you got to run some 4-4s and I got to do this and that, all of a sudden you're like, I liked Texas. I wrote them up last night. How did I only end up with 6% Texas across the board? So you have, and Adam and the smarter people have this all set up in Excel to point out when things are out of balance. I haven't gotten that far yet, and I suspect the bulk of our viewers are like me. So just write things down, and as you're ready to upload before lock, check out what you're ending up with, as opposed to right after lock when you want to bang your head into the desk. That's not a good feeling. So, but
I will say though, I will have
here. It is a giant legal pad.
There you go. There you go. Do we need to get you like a VHS copy of this show to watch later too?
I'm still holding out hope for Betamax.
There you go.
It's going to catch on. It's going to catch on.
Like it might. Fingers crossed. For HD DVDs, those aren't a thing any longer.
Oh, I forgot about those.
Yeah.
What about Laserdisc, like the big old album record size ones? Or mini discs?
Yeah.
Remember?
So I did mention that I like Kevin Gausman a lot, and that is true, and I'm going to have him, and I will certainly be over the field. That does not mean I don't like Rockies, however. Blackman, Story, Murphy grading out really well for me on FanDuel with Murphy just at 2,800. Gets the lefty-righty matchup. I like those guys as well on DK. They're not getting any ownership. So I am going to have exposure to probably the top 5, maybe top 6 guys from Colorado. More specifically, they're actual talented people like Blackman, Story, Arenado. Arenado, by the way, went yard yesterday. That was my home run pick in Slack. I didn't make it an official one. I didn't drop it off in the YouTube chat, but 2 straight days of home run picks, one of which Francisco Lindor doubled up for the first double dong of the year. Pretty excited about that one.
Very nice.
Do you care any at all about Rocky's bats?
I am still waiting to run another crunch here because the lineups just keep coming in too quickly for me.
I hear you.
Keep doing this over and over. I would suspect that they will be about my 5th or 6th most popular team, and part of that's going to be a function of when I go heavier on a pitcher. And today, as we're talking through this, it's looking like Gausman's going to be the guy. For me, I want to make sure, particularly in baseball, if they're not a top tier main, 5 to 10 guys fall in that category. If they're not one of them, I want to make sure I have at least a decent representation going against them. And sometimes that may be in the form of 3-man stacks. If it's a solid pitcher, what are you going to do? I mean, they're good for a reason. They're popular for a reason. I don't want to roll 5-man stack because who knows if 5 guys can get there. But 3 guys might be able to. And if you get the right 3 guys, it could be solid, as opposed to last night was a spot where you're like, yeah, I like Mike Leake. He did adequate. Of course, the Mariners bullpen fell apart, but I wanted to make sure that was a guy I wanted to go with 4 or 5 guys against, particularly on the late slate, just because if it goes sideways, it's going to go sideways in a big way. So you have to kind of choose what you're doing here. And Gausman is a guy that can blow up. He can pitch himself into jams and not get out of them. And if that happens, would it be a shock if he went, 3 innings and got chased with 5 earned runs and they're just like, we're going to the bullpen? No, it really wouldn't against the Rockies. But more often than not, as we've pointed out, when they're away from Coors Field and not in a friendly hitting environment, they're not one of the better offenses out there. So I want to play heavier on the pitcher in this case, but I'll get a little insurance the other way because Gausman can give up home runs and such. But again, it goes back to we're used to seeing him in the AL East against AL East opponents in Camden Yards. That's a not great recipe for pitching. What is it now that he gets to replace that going against the pitcher 3 times instead of a DH? We'll have to see. So for me, more positive towards Gausman, but I'm not going to just say, no, I'm not taking the Rockies.
Okay. For the Braves, they're in the middle of the pack for me. I just so greatly don't like the bottom of the order that I end up not stacking them a lot. But Ozzie Albies, Josh Donaldson, Freddie Freeman, Ronald Acuna look good on pretty much every slate, and they're really easy to get to. They're just expensive. So if you have the money left over, and on a day like today, I think that it's really easy to have that. I'm a huge Kyle Gibson fan for today, so that's a really easy place to get some savings. So getting to Albies, Donaldson, Freeman, Acuna seems like it's pretty easy. I don't anticipate having much else from Atlanta.
I would agree with that.
Alrighty. Perfect time for everyone to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Hitting the like button benefits us. If you like the content, you should try to help us out because that's always great. If you subscribe to the channel, then you'll know every single time that we go live and you don't have to worry about missing a show. You'll get an alert immediately. Can't really beat it. So do both.
We go live a lot, Josh.
We do go live a lot. I go live more than I do like anything else in my life, which is fantastic.
Josh on a show, Josh's wife out of town, Josh taking the dogs to daycare, Josh going into sensory deprivation tanks. Now I know why you go into the sensory deprivation tank, because you're always on. You have to. You need those moments. Oh, man, I love it. Next one's scheduled for 2 weeks from this past Friday, which happens to be my anniversary. So nice. That'll be fun. You can contemplate the love of your life. There you go. I can go back. We're talking DFS, right? Not kind of. Go back. Oh man, it was such a great day. We had a blast. We threw quite the banger. It was basically just a really, really expensive party for like 12 hours. I think the ceremony was like 8 minutes long or something. Where did you get married at? We got married in Wilmington. It's a place called the Brooklyn Arts Center. It's a former church that they have now turned into like an event space.
So it looks like a church, but it's just gutted and turns into just like a really excellent party atmosphere.
There you go. I got married at a destination wedding in Mexico because it was just easier.
Yeah,
We got
I
married.
would have happily done that as well.
Yeah, later in life, and all of my friends and family are on the West Coast, and I didn't really want to invite them all out here to Virginia because then I'd have to be the party planner. And I'm already getting married, and that's stressful enough in and of itself. So my wife and I said, hey, let's go down, let's do it here, and whoever wants to come can come, and if they can't, nobody's going to feel bad. We'll literally invite everybody. But yeah, we had like over 100 people there. Which was crazy.
That's a lot, yeah. For a destination, yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, we got married on a Sunday, so people could either come in and then that would be one of their last days, or they could hit that Friday spot and stay afterwards. And we were there for, I think we were there for 8 or 9 days.
Nice.
But yeah, it was a good time. So anyway, fond memories of that.
My wedding venue has also hosted a Modest Yahoo concert, so you don't get that kind of crossover everywhere, folks. True story. And after said Modest Yahoo concert, he went to the same bar that we did. Fun times. Nats and Padres. Nats 4.2 implied total. Padres 4.3. 50-50 game here. Jeremy Hellickson going for Washington. Joey Lucchesi going for San Diego. Lucchesi looks fine. He's probably a little overpriced. I'd rather go to Boyd at $200 more on DraftKings. I'd rather go to Sailor Gausman or Flaherty on FanDuel. So he's just kind of in no man's land, but I think he's a good pitcher. So it doesn't have me terribly interested in the Nats. I am, however, quite interested in the San Diego Padres. So interested, in fact, that they are my number one stack on FanDuel, my number one stack on DraftKings, and spoiler alert, not number one on Yahoo. They are number 2, but they are in a virtual tie. They just happen to be a 100th of a percentage point behind the Tigers. I love the Padres because they're so cheap. They're so cheap. Fernando Tatis leading off, $3,300 shortstop option on FanDuel, $4,400 on DK. But if that's not the shortstop you want, Greg Garcia is shortstop eligible on FanDuel in the 2-hole for the flat minimum. Can't beat it. And he's second base eligible on Yahoo and DraftKings, but also very cheap. Everybody is affordable here. And we are lucky enough to have Jeremy Hellickson on the opposite side. And it's not one of like the real Nats starters. So I'm going to have a massive amount of the Padres. I understand that they're chalky, but they grade out so far and away above every other team from a value perspective that I'm not going to be able to get away from them here. They're going to be very key filler in just about everything I do.
Well, I think that it shows how scared the Padres are of Hellickson that they're putting all of their left-handers in the lineup today, Josh. All 2 of them.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Greg Garcia, the glove man, batting second.
Hey, for the flat minimum on FanDuel for a shortstop, he's probably one of the better plays, even though he stinks.
Yes.
Craziness.
He will have at least 3 or 4 opportunities to stand there and have someone throw balls to him. There you
go. My model really prioritizes the top of the order, and I see guys that I don't think are very good climb to the top of value lists a lot.
But we talked about this.
Greg Garcia is barely getting there.
Yeah, we talked about this.
For a .090 ISO. You don't get a lot of sub 1.1 ISOs. So if his price wasn't $2K or $7 on Yahoo, it would be a struggle. Like, he's an okay value, and we're affording him every opportunity to be good. That's just how bad he is.
Yeah, this would be the matchup that you would want to utilize Garcia. So all kidding aside here, and we talked about this at the beginning of the show, that you get some of the utility infielders in, and some get some funny lineups on Sundays. And it's not a function of the guys going out and partying on Saturday night. It's an abrupt day game after most people have played night games, and nobody's had a day off at least since Thursday or prior to that, Wednesday, if they even had a getaway day or a short stint there. So Sundays can bring some unique things. Now, we do want to say that on Sundays the Padres tend to play better because Padre is like Sean V. Look this one up for me. I'm begging you. But I like.
I would expect them to not play well on Sundays.
A day of rest, but perhaps they're honoring something somewhere, higher power, if you will. But the Friars, can we go with the Friars? Sure. Are intriguing here against Hellickson. Now, Hellickson, not as god awful as we have come to know him as Jeremy Shellickson, but he is not really a great pitcher either. He does do better against same-handed pitching, particularly from a power perspective. He, over his last 500 batters faced, relatively evenly split between lefties and righties. He has a combined 160 isolated power, which is reasonable. And again, when you invoke the name Shellickson, it doesn't feel that same way, and he doesn't have a lot of walk rates or a lot of walk issues. He's below league average against both lefties and righties. His problem is he doesn't have strikeout stuff. He doesn't really have an out pitch, and at bats can last forever against him. And that's where he generally gets in trouble. It's just hitters, by the time they're coming around the second or third time through the lineup, they've seen him a lot, either from the bench or in the batter's box themselves. And that's when Jeremy Hellickson gets worn down and gets into trouble here. The Nats lost a heartbreaker yesterday, Josh. They gave up tie game going into the 10th, and I think they gave up 5 or 6 runs in the 10th. Oops. So we'll have to see what's happening with them, their mindset and such. But Hellickson, I think we can pick on him today. And he's one of the guys where I generally will not blindly fly into the buzzsaw. I say the same thing about Wade Miley, same thing about Cashner and such. They're not nearly as bad as we think they are. But when it goes sideways in a big way. And I'm a little sad that the popularity is going to be there for the Pod Squad, but I'm okay going with them because nobody's massively overpriced. And I love, if Seth, I hope you're watching, I love Hunter Renfroe today again. Love him. I love him every day, but I love him today even more than normal.
So do I. Basically, the only guy that doesn't grade out well in this Padres lineup is Manny Margot. Otherwise, I'm in for any sort of combination I get. Now, if Tatis and Machado and Myers are going to get up to around 30% ownership, I'm likely to be more overweight on the guys that are getting owned less in this Padres stack. So I'll have a hard time getting all the way to the field, but I'll be close to it. And I could be over it pretty aggressively on guys like Renfroe or Hosmer, Greg Garcia, unfortunately. And less so on some of the highly owned guys. So I'll have different combinations. And as for the Nats, I have very little interest in anything. They do not grade out well for me. Near the bottom on FanDuel, DK, and Yahoo.
Yeah, Kurt Suzuki absolutely fine against lefties for sites where you need to get a catcher. Soto in his in his career, Josh, about 150 or whatever at bats. He's nearly a 380, 200 guy for Woba and ISO against fellow lefties. So that's nice to see. And Anthony Rendon back in the lineup after getting a day off. I was surprised Zimmerman did not get the day off today, which means he's probably going to get hurt and have to go on the DL by playing, 4 days in a row now? This is the fun of being a Washington Nationals fan. He gets hurt like clockwork. And this feels like it's going to be the spot because you got to keep him in bubble wrap a couple times a week. But Lucchesi, very good pitcher. I think he has some nice underlying talent. and this is a spot here where I'm okay with the Nationals, but not really going to go overboard on them since we do have 20 teams in our player pool.
Yep. All right, moving on. Twins and Orioles, 4.9 run implied total for the Twins, 3.6 for the O's. It's a 64% chance to win for Minnesota. Kyle Gibson going for the Twins. Dylan Bundy going for the Orioles. I have no interest whatsoever in Dylan Bundy. He is not getting any ownership. I do, however, have a ton of interest in Kyle Gibson. I think Kyle Gibson is the second best option on FanDuel today relative to salary. I think that Kyle Gibson is the third best option on DraftKings relative to salary. He's getting some love. And not to miss it, I think that he is the second best option on Yahoo relative to salary. Orioles strike out a ton, super low implied total. I know Kyle Gibson is not a fantastic strikeout pitcher, but I think the Orioles will make anyone look better. Kyle Gibson is my favorite pay down option of all the pitchers today. How do you feel about Kyle Gibson today?
Lock and load, Josh. Lock and load. I suspect he's going to be on over half my lineups on DK today for the two pitcher site, and I'm comfortable with that. You kind of alluded to the Orioles being not that great offensive. Their offense is offensive. They have two players in the lineup today that have above a 150 isolated power since the beginning of last season. They have, let's see, also two players. You know what? We're going to round up for Rio Ruiz. They have one player that strikes out less than 20% in their lineup today against lefties, and three guys that'll take a walk. This looks good for Gibson. Yeah. I'm sure it will not. This is one of those where you're going to flip over and the Orioles hit their third home run of the game. Kind of thing. But yeah, love this one. Let's invent a narrative. Adam loves his Baltimore Orioles, but he recognizes they're bad. He also loves, to a degree that is nearly unparalleled, Kyle Gibson. And if possible, he would love to be Kyle Gibson's pitching coach because he thinks he can turn him into a much better pitcher by helping him with his pitch selection and who's calling the game. This is perfect. He's going to be hungover, sleep through a lock, and miss this, but he'll get to wake up and hopefully see Kyle Gibson working on a shutout in the 6th or 7th inning. That's my hope for today.
Yeah, I'm just a monster fan of basically anybody that plays the Orioles. Are you going to go down the Bundy path?
Well, I was trying to look up how many home runs he's allowed this year, and I got confused because ESPN has retweaked their site.
Hopefully he gives up a ton because I expect the Twins to be very highly owned. They are my second favorite team on FanDuel, second favorite team on DraftKings, and not as great on Yahoo. A little bit further down at 8th. They're a little bit more expensive there.
There are 15 pitchers that have allowed as many or more home runs than Bundy. He has allowed 7, which is not great. But I thought he'd be a little higher up on the list.
Well, hopefully today he can
rectify that
move
situation.
His way up there. Whether that's Kepler, Cruz, Rosario, Cron, Marwin Gonzalez. I'm going to have it all. I've been stacking the Twins a ton, and today is not going to be any different. Love the Minnesota Twins today. Minnesota Jakes for life.
Absolutely. And you got the dual revenge here with Nelson Cruz and Jonathan Scope. I mean, why not? The best thing about the best thing about the Orioles is once their amazing collection of gas can pitchers is gone, in comes the cavalry. Oh, wait, it's not the cavalry. It's an oil tanker. Going to add fuel to the fire. The Baltimore Orioles bullpen has pitched the most innings in the league this year. No surprise. They have I looked this up 2 days ago, but they had the second worst ERA behind just the Nationals, but their FIP and XFIP, the fielding independent pitching metrics, have them as the least unlucky of those teams that are better than them. Meaning, yeah, their 7 ERA is supported by around a 5.8 XFIP, and FIP is into the mid 6s. So they're pitching about to their talent level, and they're not unlucky at all, which is lucky for us. So load up on the Twins. Get them while they're hot. Do back of the order stack is not the worst thing you can do, because I mean, Marwin Gonzalez is a whole lot of Mia, but Mitch Garver is solid for a catcher. Jonathan Scope is absolutely great with power. He may not connect, but when he connects, he's going to hit it hard against fellow righties. And then Brandon Buxton, I mean, he's on the Cameron Maben path of he's going to tantalize us with his tools and ability and probably just never seemingly put it together. But what the hell? He was a high draft, and when I say high, was he
number one?
Was he number one? I knew he was at least top 4 or 5, but
it's the Carlos Correa draft, I believe.
You are impressive with this. I don't follow the baseball draft like literally at all.
It was my life for a very long time, including when Buxton was getting drafted. I think I'm right. I think that's the Correa draft.
All right. But in any, I mean, I remember Ken Griffey, and I remember Bryce Harper and Strasburg. And
number 2 pick, by the way. Correa went 1 to the Astros.
Okay.
They took Correa. The Astros took Correa because they can pay less for him than they could have paid for Buxton. But Buxton was essentially the consensus 1 in that year.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, this guy has absolute raw speed for days. So if he can get on base, that's the hard part.
It's a loaded draft.
Billy Hamilton involved?
No. Correa, Buxton, then we get Zunino, Kevin Gausman, Albert Almora, Max Fried, David Dahl, Addison Russell, Tyler Naquin, who is not great, Giolito, Corey Seager, Michael Wacha. A lot of pros here. Barrios, Mitch Haniger, McCullers.
Are you just reading the first round?
Barrios, Haniger, McCullers were at the supplemental first. Everybody I named was in the first 41 picks. Joey Gallo.
That's amazing that many guys are relevant at this point.
Marcus Stroman.
Look at that.
These are all in the top 41 picks. Matt Olson gets to 47th. Jesse Winker, 49th.
Power's coming along with Winker.
Paul Blackburn, who has the unlucky name as part of who's the crappiest pitcher on this slate for us.
He feels like he's literally been around forever. And he is not.
A 2012 draft pick out of Heritage High School in California.
Oh.
Any Orioles bats for you? It's pretty much only just VR every day. Chris Davis on Yahoo, I guess.
It's Smith and Nunez, but so here's an interesting one. I mean, what do you do with this one? Because Gibson, it can go south in a hurry. And he's sitting there, for me, he's probably going to be on half, if not close to 60% of my lineup. So that's a lot, but I don't like any of the Orioles. So here's how I handle these things. If I've got that much on him, but I don't like any of the pitchers, or any of the hitters against him, but he's not great, I put in a couple, 1 or 2 lineups in a, $1 or $2, 100 or 200 man on DK, and I stack the 3 best hitters for the Orioles, and then just go with whatever my other best lineup or strategy or play is. Because what I want to do in that case is, if it goes south for Gibson and he has a bad game, which he's got enough of them in his career, that I will be okay. But a 1% lineup in the large field tournaments, Josh, that's, what do you get, 2 extra money? But if you're doing them in the leagues and it goes sideways enough, your 1% lineup will get you 5 or 6x of whatever you have. So all of a sudden, if not higher, so all of a sudden you get, $20-$30 against the pitcher that you have, $100 riding on, and it softens the blow a little bit. It's not going to make you whole, and it's not going to make you, erase a lot of the mistakes, but it does help cushion things. And even if you're doing it that way, the rest of your team could carry that team to a victory. And I love to play in these small field contests, and I generally stay out of the large field tournaments just because the payout structures are an abomination these days. Yeah,
because of Gibson's ownership, I will likely have 2 or 3 full Orioles stacks in my 150 or so. Because, and you've kind of alluded at it, I don't generally run hedge stacks against quality pitchers. And I don't think that Gibson is a quality pitcher. He just happens to be valuable for his matchup and his price tag. Absolutely. So I do want to be on the opposite side of that sort of ownership. But on days where it's just like, oh, Scherzer's 55%, it's like, I don't need a stack on the opposite side of that
Exactly.
The leverage is not playing Scherzer, not stacking against him. Scherzer can have a bad game. That doesn't necessarily mean the other team went out and hit 6 dongs to win you a tournament. Yeah, I think that's probably it on this one.
All right.
I know we're going to have more to talk about here. White Sox and Tigers. I had 4.5 runs for both teams, a 50-50 game. Ronaldo Lopez going for Chicago. Matt Boyd going for Detroit. We'll start on the Lopez side, I guess. $31 on Yahoo, $8K on FanDuel, $6,200 on DK. He's got 26% expected ownership on Yahoo, 36 on DraftKings. He is the cheapest pitcher available on DK. He's middle of the pack, basically, on Yahoo. 36% ownership for Lopez is the second most owned starter on DraftKings right now. Are you going all the way down to Ronaldo Lopez and turning and agreeing with the chalk? And I'll say this much. I like him. He grades out well. I understand why he's getting 36% ownership. Not a guy I love in tournaments, but if you're playing cash games, Ronaldo Lopez is a very nice paydown option.
Yeah, so you mentioned in the little draft diatribe there, Lucas Giolito. So Ronaldo Lopez and Lucas Giolito were traded away from the Nationals for Adam Eaton. Nobody won that trade. But Lopez and Giolito have had mixed results at best. They have some talent, but at some point the sand's going to run out of the hourglass on them. I look at this Detroit Tigers lineup, and I am going to have a lot of Ronaldo Lopez. This one, I will also make sure I am running some 4-man stacks here of the top 4 players of the Tigers. But if you batting 5th, Brandon Dixon, Gordon Beckham. Hey, I remember him. Josh Harrison. Wait, is that the Josh Harrison that we all know and love? Grayson Greiner and Jacoby Jones. Aren't those guys 11th and 12th men on some playoff basketball team right now? What? God, this is a horrid lineup. And the Tigers against Ronaldo Lopez in, yes, it's cooler temperatures there in the mid-40s today, which bodes well for them. But Ronaldo Lopez, the opposing team, just has a 3.9 play run total. What universe are we living in, Josh? This should not be happening. Oh, boy, I don't like to imbibe on Sundays, but I may have to if I'm rolling out as much Gibson and Ronaldo Lopez as my current crunch is showing.
I might have entered the total wrong in this game. I did. I have this way higher than it actually is. That's going to change the way that I look at this. Because I really like the Tigers bats.
Oh, did you
I had 9 instead of 8. I must have fat fingered this one.
Oh, okay. Well, at one point, Carpenter was yesterday. This is the rain out from yesterday. So Carpenter was slated to pitch for Detroit, but they pulled the Nationals move and said, "Yeah, we're going to skip you, buddy, and keep the rotation intact." And they're going with Boyd. But
it hasn't changed much for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Look, I get the Lopez love. With that said, on a dollar for dollar basis, the Tigers are already my number 4 stack on FanDuel and my number 3 stack on DK. So I'm going to have quite a bit of Tigers to be on the opposite side of all of this Ronaldo Lopez ownership in tournaments. So I'm very happy about that. Well, as happy as I can be about rostering the Tigers. I mean, the first 4 guys are all at least average-ish. How about Boyd? $48 on Yahoo, which is the most expensive pitcher. He's $10K on FanDuel, most expensive pitcher. He's $9,300 on DraftKings, which is 4th. Only getting around 20 to 25% ownership on the 2 pitcher sites, 10% on FanDuel. Grades out as my 3rd best guy on FanDuel. 3rd best guy on DK. Fantastic strikeout matchup. It is a sea of righties. This White Sox team Ks a ton. I'm going to have some exposure to Boyd, but not as much as probably the public. How do you feel about Boyd?
I'm actually good with this, and because of the aforementioned Lopez and Gibson, my optimizer is able to put in a lot of Matt Boyd at 9,300 into my lineups. I like this matchup, as you said. McCann is his. So James McCann is kind of interesting. He has a long track record of being great against lefties, but his recent track record is just horrid. I mean, he has there's your sub 100 isolated power in his last 120 at bats. in righty-lefty matchups. That's not who he is, but he is situationally a great guy in this, and I don't hate him batting cleanup there if you need a catcher. But look at this lineup. I mean, Luis Garcia, no power, pesky as hell, but no power. McCann, I just talked about him. Moncada, god awful against lefties. Perhaps he should just go to being a lefty only hitter instead of trying to switch it. Delmonico is a mess. And the rest of their lineup: Castillo, Rodon, Cordell. Oops, let me refresh and make sure that's their actual lineup. My apologies, but point being, they're not that great. And Boyd does have talent, and if he had a more catchier name other than Matt Boyd, he'd probably be someone we'd be interested in more often. Or if he was pitching for the Yankees or a popular team, we would, be singing his praises. But instead, he's with the Motor City Kitties, and that's just not going to do it for him. Let's see. Oh, so the lineup's a little bit different. Castillo is 6, Rodon 7, Cordell 8, and Sanchez is 9. This is not a good lineup. So because I'm getting the discount, and this is kind of the strategy show talk part here, because I'm getting the discount on those other 2 pitchers that are going to be combined at, one of my 2 pitchers today, I've got the extra money to throw around to Boyd, and I'm perfectly fine getting to him. I think in this situation, he's probably more like an $8,300 pitcher. But because we have 2 discounted options, that goes out the window, and it's fine where he's at on DraftKings.
Yeah, it's hard to not want to target against this White Sox team. Everybody in their lineup via Steamer has a 20% or higher K rate. Only Abreu and Yolmer Sanchez are below 24. They've got 25, 27, 28, 30 on Moncada. Moncada is garbage against left-handed pitching, so that should go really well for him.
You remember you said how hard it is to have a less than 0.1 isolated power?
Yes.
In their last, all of them, Castillo the least with 73 at-bats, McCann 120 and Moncada 200. All of them are below 100, and that is their 4, 5, 6 hitters.
Yikes.
If someone gets on base, they're going to stay on base. They're not coming around to score because there's no one that's going to hit them in. That all of a sudden has Matt Boyd being quite appealing in this game.
Yeah, give me Tigers bats to hedge Ronaldo Lopez, and the fact that I think they're efficient based on their price tags. Give me a little bit of Lopez, better in cash than GPPs. Give me a little bit of Matt Boyd. I don't have anybody that I'm particularly keying on. Jose Abreu looks good constantly, especially against a lefty. So if you need a one-off bat and he's not getting any ownership, he's as good a bet as anybody to go yard work today. Abreu grading out as my number 9 hitter in my home run model today. So don't be afraid to get some Abreu in your life, but otherwise, you're clear of those White Sox. Yucky. 2 games to go. Cardinals and Reds, 4-run implied total for the Cards, 3.5 for the Reds, 57% chance to win for St. Louis. Jack Flaherty going for the Cards. Sonny Gray going for Cincinnati. Sonny Gray not grading out all that well for me. Lots of righties in the Cardinals lineup. Not a ton of strikeouts, so I don't really have any interest in Gray, nor does the public. Jack Flaherty, very popular on Yahoo. 23% expected ownership at $42. Not the same sort of popularity on DK where he is 10-3. I like Jack Flaherty. I think he's a really good pitcher. He doesn't strike me as someone I want to have a ton of from a fantasy perspective. Votto doesn't K, Barnhart doesn't K, Iglesias doesn't K, Peraza doesn't K. It's just not the best DFS matchup, but I do expect Flaherty to have no problem shutting this Reds team down. How do you feel about pitching?
Flaherty is one of my favorites that I would like to get in this particular situation. Nobody really overly intimidating for his skill set on the Reds. And I mean, I have a soft spot for the Reds lefties, and I think the addition of Puig, who's great against righties, and then Eugenio Suarez is excellent as well. But this isn't the matchup I want to go to Cincinnati. So Flaherty looks like he's going to be up there with Boyd as the guys I'm spending on. And then again, as I mentioned, a lot of that's the function of me getting more than healthy shares of Gibson.
Sure.
And Ronaldo Lopez. Oh, Ronaldo Lopez. This day, I'm going to have to go to bed early tonight, I think, Josh. Because
No early to bed for me today, baby. Game of Thrones, big one. I'll be up late.
Oh, there you go. I will be recording the podcast with Laffy, the Early Bird podcast. Check it out because Dan Strafford has some sort of Game of Thrones recap podcast that he does for his day job. I think it's a fun little side thing that they do.
Nice.
Because there are so many people that watch it. So I'll be doing that tonight.
There you go. Yeah, tons of Thrones tonight. I'm excited. Ooh, I want to get into this tournament. Do I? Yeah, might as well. 150.
All right, two things while you're doing that. We've got the just dropped it, the Spotlight Hitters and Stacks
There you
article. That is a free one in chat there. We run that out every day and just highlight the stacks. I don't always go with the Rockies or whomever has the highest implied run total. I'll give you a reasoning behind the other ones, and then you can use them as a secondary stack. And sometimes I've gone with Boston in the obvious spots just because it's so good you can't pass it up. But I try to point out a few things to encompass some hitters that you might not see otherwise. So it's a fun, quick read. It's a nice little look. And if you're cruising home from work and you want to throw in a lineup, or you're at work and there's a day game, we'll have a little stack in there for you that you can go with. That should be in a reasonable spot to succeed, and not always going to be the main chalky one. So I want to throw that in there. And then one other thing, it filled last night and I got my ass kicked. It's the Fred Van Vliet, or as I like to call him, Fred Van Elite Fan Club. But Josh, we are setting up the Awesemo DraftKings league here. We're just shy of 300 people in it. So I'm going to drop my tweet because the YouTube chat doesn't like this link, but you can go in there and join that group, because I'm not going to be putting out the alerts to the league links on Twitter, part of the game contest links on Twitter anymore. We're putting the league link out because what we want to do is we want to start running up to a contest a day where we're giving away some extra prizes, be it swag, be it some promotional subscriptions, etc. Now, for those of you that are already Awesemo members, no problem. The default prize on this is going to be, if you're the one that wins and you're already a subscriber, you get a t-shirt. But you got to have the Awesemo avatar to get that t-shirt. So that's just all we're asking for. But it's the same structure, same payouts as any other contest. We're going to run them as a buck. But the reason I'm trying to get us up to critical mass here is if you make any contest bigger than 20 and it doesn't fill, it doesn't run. Well, that's no fun. And people were complaining yesterday because the 40-man filled rapidly. And it took me a lot of work to get the normal 40-mans to fill. So if we can get critical mass, we'll do one of these a day and have some fun. And we'll do some restriction, like whoever's in it from Awesemo has to do some weird stuff, like me playing Fred Van Elite, etc., just to give you guys some fun and some interest. Now, we're also not going to spam the hell out of you with this one because we control this group. So anybody that joins a group or a league has the ability to send invites to the rest of the league. If you're doing that, we're going to remove you from the league, and you're not going to be eligible for any prizes, and it's not going to be very fun for you. So this is a fun spot. So for those of you that don't want to be bombarded by stuff, dip in here, and the only time we're going to launch stuff is if we're doing something extra from it. So check that out. I'm going to drop the link to my pinned tweet today in chat, and that's how you can join the league here. And yes, shout out to Seth, who destroyed me yesterday. Fred Van Vliet.
Let's close out Cardinals and Reds here. I don't have any real interest in the bats in this game, either side. Cardinals and Reds both grading out as mid-tier or lower options. Cardinals are actually dead last for me on both FanDuel and DraftKings and Yahoo. So I don't get the sense that I'm going to have very much exposure here. Do you like any bats?
On the 2 o'clock slate, sure, I'll go with the top three. Hey, even top four here for the Cardinals. Gray, competent pitcher. He's a bit of a head case, as we're learning, but he's still competent and he's good against righties. But this particular collection of the St. Louis Cardinals are good against righty pitchers. So Goldschmidt, DeJong, is that the actual lineup? I'm guessing it's Goldschmidt, DeJong, and Marcell Ozuna will be in there behind Carpenter. So those would be the guys I would look to here. But outside of that 2 o'clock slate, not running into them with any sort of volume here. And yes, that is their top four. Oh, Colton Wong leading off. Yeah. Colton Wong leading off. Sonny Gray. Colton Wong leading off. So I may get a little more Sonny Gray than I initially anticipated here. That's a major downgrade from Matt Carpenter.
Yeah, that is an understatement.
Colton Wong or Greg Garcia?
Well, Colton Wong by miles and miles and miles and miles. But I get the point. You add that in. Only one lineup to go here. We're waiting on the Angels. Otherwise, we are going to have everything we're 90 minutes out, and we have almost everything ready to go. And now we're ready to hit the final game of the main slate. Once this thing stops spinning and I can add in this new Cardinals lineup, I just want to make sure that nothing changes, but I don't get the sense that anything's going to be moving around too much just based on one player. I do know that I'm not going to be rostering Matt Carpenter, but other than that, no real changes. So let's close it out now. We don't have the Angels lineup, but we've got everything else. Royals and Angels, 4.4 run implied total for the Royals. Now this one, there's no way this is right. Let me make sure that I have the right lineup or right line in here. All right, Orioles, Angels, there we go. Angels and Royals. Line is 109, 100. What is the total?
How is this nearly a 10 implied?
9.5 right now.
Yeah.
Ooh, that is healthy.
62, wind's not blowing out.
4.7 run implied total for the Royals, 4.8 for the Angels. If you're curious why they have such a high total, maybe this will lend a helping hand. Homer Bailey going for Kansas City, Matt Harvey going for the Angels. If you're curious why the run total looks kind of high in KC today, it's because both pitchers stink. They're very similar in that neither one of them are any good. They don't get strikeouts. They just give up runs. Bailey getting no ownership love. Harvey getting essentially no ownership love. They're not going to get any love out of me, nor should they. Angels are, 6th or 7th for me across all three sites. The Royals are kind of at the bottom. I hate this entire game, and it blows my mind. I think the teams are bad. I think the pitching is bad. I don't know what to get out of here outside of just saying simply, Mike Trout is really good at baseball.
Yes. He should get paid at some point, right?
I mean, I think he's doing pretty well for himself right now.
These are two guys that we end up these two pitchers. Thus far this season, we've ended up talking ourselves into a little bit more frequently than I think we had wanted. Those were smaller slates, and there were not great alternatives at their SP2 discounted price points. I still am preferring Lopez and Gibson to either of these guys. If Lopez and Gibson were not on the slate and these were our two cheapies, I would probably be getting 15 to 20% of them, which is a far cry what I'm getting from the other ones. But that would just be a function of me needing to save salary somewhere in order to get some of the more robust 5-3 lead stacks or some good pairings of my 4-4 stacks. So like you here, I'm not doing cartwheels for the offenses. I really don't want the pitchers. Yesterday, I ended up the night slate. My final crunch came in, and these two teams were two of my top four most popular stacks. But a lot of it had to do with their pricing. Today, I'm not really seeing the pricing that I like here and we have some other spots with some other utility guys coming in and other backup catchers, et cetera, that I don't think I really need to, or the optimizer's not really going to get me to the Whit Merrifield, Adalberto Mondesi, Alex Gordon, who I would want in this situation. So it looks like I'm getting about 10% of these teams in stacks, which is a function of this slate. Chop 3 of the good games off of this one, and this is the 8-game slate. We're singing a different tune, but with where we are now, these guys are just kind of coming out in the wash.
Yeah. Cole Calhoun, Mike Trout, Justin Bour, the only guys that I really care about at all in the Angels. Mondesi and O'Hearn are probably the only two guys I care about on the Royals, but I'm just not going to be anywhere near this game, which kind of surprises me. And if we find out that like Mike Trout isn't playing today, which wouldn't exactly shock me, the Angels will become even less interesting. All right, so let's
Sorry,
sum it all up.
Pouring a soda there. I had to mute myself.
You're good.
Hopefully it
Favorite
worked.
pitchers on DraftKings tonight.
I don't know that we're going to say favorite, but guys that are going to be making me happy or ruining my day are going to be Gibson and Lopez. And that's so I like to always say who are going to be on the majority of my lineups, and it's those guys. This is just a function of what we have today. If I were, let me see, if I were hand building, let me get back over to my projections page. Oh, we didn't do home runs, did we?
We did not.
We did not. Let's do home runs real quick. That'll give me a chance to get this uploaded. I'm taking Hunter Renfroe today.
Hunter Renfroe grades out as my number 12 hitter in my home run model today, which is a very, very good score when you don't see it before you get the pick.
Yes. So just quickly on the pitchers, if I was hand building the guys I would try to go with would be Flaherty, Gausman, and Boyd. We're back to that Chris Sale question, and what do you believe, what do you not believe? But if I was just building one lineup, I think I would go elsewhere in this highly variant sport, especially even on the FanDuel, and try for one of these other guys and just hope that Sale has an adequate outing, which is not going to do him any favors at his price, even though it is discounted.
So you are at Hunter Renfroe.
Yep.
Pick is in. I will be taking Max Kepler.
I had Max Kepler yesterday in our pretend early game with Jake, and guess what? Jake did not pick a guy who hit a home run.
What else is new? Jake currently sitting 0 for 14. I am, I believe, 4 for 16, and Chris is 4 for 18. So
where am I on this one?
You are 4 for 9 as of right now.
Look at that. 44.4% success rate.
Craziness. There it is. Max Kepler for me. Hunter Renfroe for EMAC. Pitching for me, Sale, Boyd, Gibson, Kevin Gausman. Those are my top 4. From a stacks perspective, Padres on both sites, Twins on both sites, Tigers and Brewers. They are my top 4. Dollar for dollar on FanDuel and DraftKings. Padres, Tigers, Marlins, Reds, top 4 on Yahoo. If you're interested in the, what are we calling it? Late slate, evening slate, afternoon slate, it starts at 4 o'clock. We've got a 4-gamer. If you want any of my thoughts, seems like the perfect time to become a member. MLB Strategy is the promo code. I will be in Slack for most of the day. Stop by, get your thoughts on, or to get my thoughts on the late slate. EMAC, you going to be around a little bit today?
I will. Designated office hours today from 3 to 4. Happy to talk the baseball late slate. And we did this intentionally because there's not always, because we just don't have lineups and so many things can change on Sundays and it's hard. We got projections, we got the ownership, we got all that other stuff for baseball. But normally we set the office hours, so we're not doing strategies for that particular slate. We're looking more holistically. You know, Adam will get in there and talk about how he builds his lineups. You've done a bunch of them for how to utilize Fantasy Cruncher. We have Ben Rossa comes in the night before golf and talks about weather and picking guys based on their flight or their start times, what flights they're in against the weather, etc. So we're trying to do a more holistic approach. Laffy does his as well. So this one is since there's not as much content, I'm happy to talk baseball. And the last couple of times we've done it, we've just built lineups and talked about strategy. And someone will say, "Oh, what if we did a lineup with this stack?" And then I'll look and show what I would do, and then and pick around it. Because on these Sunday slates, there's going to be anywhere from 2 to 4 games. Because the sites have chosen, most of the sites anyway, outside of Yahoo, have chosen to eliminate that night game. And just, it's a very thin player pool. So you want to talk about the different strategies. Do you go with a 4-man stack? Maybe. Do you try to go a 4-4? Probably not, because there's just not enough good hitters in that player pool. So then we start talking about one-offs and different approaches and things like that. So it's been a lot of fun. So that's in the premium Slack. And we have a well-rounded membership group here that has all sorts of great ideas. And I generally learn at least something every day from somebody else in Slack, which is great because there's just so much to consume, and specifically for basketball. Now, we're not in the middle of that season, but this applies somewhat to pitching. You'll say, this guy looks hurt. Well, how hurt is he? Well, if we can see him on the eye test of a game, and I'm not going to go watch that guy at bat, but if you could see he's, his toes bothering him and his pivot foot isn't doing what it should do, and we can see that, then we probably don't want to play that guy. For basketball, it's it looked like that guy turned an ankle on the free throw line going up for a rebound in the last 30 seconds of the game, and that doesn't make the Roto World blurb, but somebody saw it. These are the little fun edges that you can get because there's no way you can watch all of these sports, but you pick up some fun little stuff. Or people are near the stadium and we have weather. Josh, I know we do have the Osmo weather account and such, but we just see little varying shades from green to red moving around on the Doppler radar. We need someone to poke their head out the window and tell us what's really going on sometimes.
Sure. Or
we got people who are at the game. So it's very useful. And plus it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun in Slack.
Alrighty, guys, you have about an hour and 15 minutes to get your lineups in. We've got an NBA lock at 1 o'clock. Lots of stuff going on.
Hockey at 3.
Hockey at 3.
Evidently. NASCAR at 2.
NASCAR is a sport that exists. We have content for it, and that's all that matters. If you want to get that NASCAR content, you should come. And you can sign up using MLB Strategy as the promo code. You get 50% off your first month. I think that'll do it. Best Emac, anything else?
That's it for me.
Best of luck, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow morning doing it all again like we normally do. Myself and Ship My Money, I believe. So tune into that tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Best of luck. We're out of here. Bye.